There are 195 countries on Earth right now. But rewind far enough and there were 0, which means at some point, somebody had to invent the very first country in history. And it wasn't England, it wasn't China, it wasn't Rome. The first country ever created is 5,000 years old, and it was ruled by a king named after a catfish. Meanwhile, the oldest country still standing today was founded by one stonemason hiding on a mountain. It's smaller than Disney World, and it has outlived the entire Roman Empire. So how do you invent a country before countries exist? Who actually pulled it off first? And how does a tiny republic survive 1,700 years while every empire around it dies? Today, the first cities, the Catfish King, and the little nation that refused to disappear. Buckle up. First, we need rules. What actually counts as a country? Turns out lawyers have a checklist. It's called the Montevideo Convention, and it lists exactly 4 ingredients. 1. Land. 2. People living on the land. 3. A government telling those people what to do. 4. Other countries willing to return your calls. That's it. That's a country. Notice what's not on the list. A flag, an anthem, an army. All optional. There's even a knightly order in Rome with embassies, passports, and 0 land. Lawyers are still arguing about that one. And for roughly 300,000 years, humans had none of the 4 ingredients. We lived in small, wandering bands. No borders, no capitals, no paperwork. If you hated your neighbors, you just walked away. Then, about 12,000 years ago, we invented farming. And farming has one giant side effect. You can't leave. Your food is literally planted in the ground. So humans got stuck in place. Villages grew into towns. And around 5,500 years ago, in what's now Iraq, those towns did something completely new. Welcome to Sumer, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Home of Uruk, the place many historians call the first true city in the history of the world. By around 3100 BCE, Uruk held somewhere between 25 and 50,000 people. Almost certainly the largest city on Earth at the time, the biggest crowd our species had ever managed. And Uruk had company. Ur, Kish, Lagash, a dozen cities, each with its own king, its own god, and its own army. Every city was its own tiny independent state. These Sumerians also invented writing around 3300 BCE. Not for poetry, not for love letters, for accounting. The oldest written documents on Earth are, essentially, receipts. Receipts for barley, receipts for sheep, and beer. There's a 5,000-year-old tablet in the British Museum recording beer paid to workers as part of their wages. The oldest paycheck in history. Drinkable. In fact, the first human being whose name we know was probably not a king, not a hero, not a queen. He was, most likely, an accountant. Say hello to Kushim, signer of barley receipts. But here's the thing. A city with a wall around it is impressive. It's still not a country. Sumer never unified. Its cities spent centuries fighting each other, like neighbors with armies. For the world's first actual country, we have to leave Iraq and head southwest, to a river valley where one man was about to have a very big idea. Egypt, around 3100 BCE. The Nile Valley. One thin ribbon of green through the desert, hundreds of miles long, crowded with farming villages, and split between 2 rival kingdoms. Upper Egypt, in the south, wore a tall white crown. Lower Egypt, in the north, wore a red one. 2 kingdoms, 2 crowns, 1 river. You can feel where this is going. Around 3100 BCE, an Egyptian king named Narmer entered the story. His name is written with a catfish symbol. One popular reading, Raging Catfish. The first country in history was about to be founded by an angry fish. Narmer's southern kingdom swallowed the north, merging the 2 Egypts into one single state, stretching the entire length of the river valley. How do we know? One incredible object, the Narmer palette. A carved stone tablet dug up in 1898, considered so precious that Egypt has reportedly never let it leave the country. On one side of the stone, Narmer wears the white crown of the south. Flip it over, same king, now wearing the red crown of the north. History's oldest before and after picture. And with that, Egypt became what historians call the world's first territorial state. Not a city with a wall, an entire land under one government. In other words, a country. One king, one administration. And yes, taxes, immediately. Turns out you can't invent the country without inventing the tax collector. Nobody has escaped since. The system worked terrifyingly well. The Egyptian state ran, with a few intermissions, for roughly 3,000 years. For reference, the United States is currently on year 250. And Narmer himself? Ancient tradition, written down much, much later, says he ruled for 62 years and was then killed by a hippopotamus. The first head of state in history, taken out by a hippo. Once countries existed, humans needed only about 800 years to invent the sequel, taking other people's countries. Enter Sargon of Akkad. Sargon's origin story, according to legend. His mother set him adrift on the river in a reed basket sealed with tar. A water carrier named Aki fished him out and raised him as his gardener. Baby. Basket. River. If that sounds familiar, scholars have noticed too. It's strikingly similar to the story of Moses, and they still debate which legend came first. From gardener, Sargon became the king's cupbearer, literally the guy who holds the royal cup. Then, the story goes, he took the throne. Then he took everything else. Around 2334 BCE, Sargon conquered the Sumerian city-states one by one and stitched them into history's first empire. He bragged that 5,400 men ate bread before him every single day. Quick side note, history's first named author was his daughter, Enheduanna, high priestess of the moon god, credited with hymns that were copied for centuries. The first author history remembers is a woman. But empires ship with an expiration date. The Akkadian Empire collapsed after roughly 180 years. Drought, chaos, invaders. The first empire in history didn't even make it 2 centuries, which brings us to the dark truth about countries. They die. Sumer? Gone. Akkad? Gone. Rome? Gone. Almost every country ever created has vanished from the map. So here's the real question. What is the oldest country still alive today? The answer is sitting on top of a mountain in Italy, and it is glorious. The year is 301. A stonemason named Marinus is working near Italy's Adriatic coast, hiding, the legend says, from Rome's persecution of Christians. Marinus does what any sensible fugitive would do. He climbs a mountain, Mount Titano, and starts a tiny community on top. Population, him and a handful of followers. That mountaintop hideout is now the Republic of San Marino. Traditional founding date, September 3rd, in the year 301. It has been up there, minding its own business, ever since. Do the math. By tradition, San Marino is over 1,700 years old. Founded before the fall of Rome, before England, France, or Spain existed. It watched all of that happen. From a mountain. The legend says Marinus's dying words were, "I leave you free from both men," meaning the emperor and the pope. One sentence of independence. 17 centuries of follow-through. And it is tiny. 61 square kilometers. Walt Disney World in Florida is bigger than the entire country. The oldest nation on Earth is smaller than a theme park. Its government is beautifully weird, too. San Marino elects 2 heads of state at once, the captain's regent, and swaps them out every 6 months. They've done it this way since 1243. 2 co-presidents, changed twice a year, for nearly 800 years. Specifically so nobody ever gets too comfortable in the chair. Ancient Rome had consuls. San Marino kept the idea alive. In 1797, Napoleon came through Italy, flattening everything in his path. But he liked tiny San Marino. Liked it so much he offered to give the little republic more land. For free. San Marino said, "No thank you." Their reasoning? Free land today is a war with a neighbor tomorrow. They turned down real estate from Napoleon, and that restraint is arguably why they still exist. Napoleon also threw in a friendly gift, wheat plus 4 cannons. The wheat arrived. The cannons, somehow, never showed up. Nobody knows where they went. In 1861, San Marino made Abraham Lincoln an honorary citizen. Lincoln wrote back, "Mid-Civil War. Although your dominion is small, your state is nevertheless one of the most honored in all history." And when World War II reached the mountain, tiny neutral San Marino, population around 15,000, sheltered an estimated 100,000 refugees. The whole country became a lifeboat. Today, San Marino has around 34,000 people, more registered cars than residents, and a ceremonial army that includes an actual crossbow corps. The oldest country on Earth is defended by crossbows. Quick footnotes before the comments arrive. Japan does have the world's oldest continuous monarchy, but its official founding date is legend, not history. And modern Egypt? Same river, same name, but the state got rebooted many times. So there's your answer. The first country ever created, Egypt, around 3100 BCE, unified by a catfish king, running a format so sticky the entire planet still uses it. And the longest-running country still on the map, San Marino. One stonemason, one mountain, 2 presidents at a time, 0 interest in free land, and 1 fan letter from Abraham Lincoln. Every border on Earth today runs on the same 4 ingredients Egypt assembled 5,000 years ago: land, people, a government, and neighbors who return your calls. And the map isn't finished. The newest country, South Sudan, only joined in 2011, welcomed into the United Nations 5 days after independence. Somewhere out there, the next first day of a country is still coming. If your brain liked this, subscribe. This is Truth Explorer, where the truth is always weirder than they taught you. See you in the next one.